I'm back. Hey everybody, I'm back. I went down to Pensacola, Florida for a little bit to hang out with some family and just, have a little bit of a vacation. I have to say, if you guys do ever get to go down to Pensacola, Florida, make sure you eat at number 1, the Grand Marlin, and number 2, Peg Leg Pete's. Fantastic places to eat. Also, before I get into today's news, I have to thank someone. So thank you, someone. And it was nice to have the opportunity to just kind of clear my head and get away from things, even politics for a little bit, because it can be, especially now, you guys know how crazy and stressful and just overwhelming it can be. And views for a lot of different programs are down. People aren't watching politics. I think especially on the Republican side, a lot of people are so dejected and so disgusted and so defeated feeling right now because of all the lying and the cheating and just the garbage that has gone on, and how it seems that nobody is ever brought to justice. It's enough to make you crazy, but it's very, very important to never give up the fight and never stop. And it's okay to take breaks sometimes just to recharge. And we have to keep going, and we can't stop fighting because of this next story that I'm getting into, all about critical racism theory or critical race theory, whatever you want to call it, where they are coming after the children. So let's get into this story. A nice little Gateway Pundit article here. Dozens of school districts are using book that claims whiteness is the devil and that white children sell their soul for stolen land and stolen riches. Investigative journalist and avid CRT opponent Chris Rufo has identified over 30 school districts across 15 different states that are teaching the radical anti-whiteness book, Not My Idea, by Anastasia Higginbotham. Rufo notes that the book, meant for children as young as kindergartners, traffics in the noxious principles of race essentialism, collective guilt, and anti-whiteness. So these are images actually from the book. Whiteness is a bad deal. It always was. And then there's a little guy here saying, dude, we can see your pointy tail. So here's a white hand and a pointy devil's tail and some fire. Of course, indicating that whiteness, white people, they are the devil. Contract binding you to whiteness. Okay, so if you're white, you get stolen land, stolen riches, and special favors. So whiteness gets to mess endlessly with the lives of your friends, neighbors, loved ones, and all fellow humans of color for the purpose of profit. And there's a little dollar sign there. And then it says your soul, sign below. And then land, riches, and favors may be revoked at any time for any reason. You can see here why we can't all just check out permanently and just say, hey, you know what? I'm done with politics after this, because now they're coming for your children in just unspeakable ways. The book teaches children to primarily identify by their skin color, while it paints white children as evil, saying whiteness is a bad deal. It always was. Oh, here's another page. It says racism is a white person's problem, and we are all caught up in it. Because Black people can't be racist, even when they're beating Asian people. Oh, and here's a fantastic quote from Colorado Arts and Sciences magazine. Love this. White supremacy is the root of race-related violence in the United States. Here we go. Best quote ever. The point I've made through all of those experiences is that anti-Asian racism has the same source as anti-Black racism, white supremacy. So when a Black person attacks an Asian person, the encounter is fueled perhaps by racism, but very specifically by white supremacy. White supremacy does not require a white person to perpetrate it. So there you go. There you go. See, none of anything that they are saying makes sense. Black people can't be racist, but if they are racist, it's actually white supremacy, but you don't have to be white to do white supremacy, but white people are the devil. So somehow I think there's some sort of like Rachel Dolezal in reverse transracial thing where if a black person attacks an Asian person, they actually become white. Like, none of this makes sense, but they're going to teach this to your kids in school, folks. Not My Idea is a clear example of how critical race theory brands white children as oppressors that should feel shame for the color of their skin. In June, a law firm associated with Rufo filed a lawsuit in Illinois against a school district for instructing teachers to read the book, among others, and use it in their curriculum. Parents across the country have been pushing back against this racist and anti-American indoctrination by speaking up against teachers and school boards. There we go. Critical theory banned in 6 states. That's 44 states too few. So let's take a look at this map. The states in yellow, there's been a bill introduced in the legislature. If the states are gray, there's been no bill. And if the states are in this red-orange color, then the bill has been passed and signed into law. You can see if you're not in a state that's red, you should be on the phone calling your representatives, telling them that you don't want this garbage being taught in school to your children. And then finally, I'm going to show you or talk about how the leftists or the people who are opposed to people who don't want this garbage being taught to their children, how they're trying to, or how they are gaslighting parents on critical race theory by just saying, oh, we're not teaching critical race theory. What are you talking about? Opponents of critical race theory are resorting to semantic gaslighting to defend a dogma that most Americans instinctively abhor. Some pundits claim that CRT is exclusively a school of thought taught in legal academia. On her MSNBC show, Joy Reid claimed that law school is really the only place where it is taught. NBC has looked into everywhere. Former Lincoln Project co-founder George Conway tweeted, "I don't think critical legal studies should be taught in elementary schools, and I'm willing to die on that hill." Basically, the defenders of CRT are trying to say that because they don't come out with a book that says critical race theory on it, that they're actually not teaching that. But in reality, they are taking the principles from critical race theory and implementing them into the programs for the schools. So they're trying to hit you with a semantics game. Some journalists, informed by other experts, contend that CRT is synonymous with talking about racism. NPR defines CRT as teaching about the effects of racism. The New York Times called it classroom discussion of racism. NBC News labeled it as the academic study of racism's perversive impact. These definitions are, of course, mutually exclusive, but they both serve to paint parents into a corner. If CRT is defined just as talking about racism, then parental objections to it must be rooted in racism. If CRT is defined just as a thesis discussed in law schools, then parental objections to it must be rooted in ignorance. So they get up and they cry that conservatives don't want kids to learn about slavery. And that has nothing to do with this at all, because we already teach about slavery. They already teach about Martin Luther King. We already teach these things. So it's a very disingenuous argument. There's no doubt that CRT has become a politicized term. Manhattan Institute senior fellow Chris Rufo forthrightly explained his strategy on this issue as follows. The goal is to have the public read something crazy in the newspaper and immediately think critical race theory. We have decodified the term and will recodify it to annex the entire range of cultural constructions that are unpopular with Americans. Liberal writer Freddie DeBoer has argued that CRT is now a completely floating signifier. Conservatives label a host of things they don't like as CRT. Liberals then feel compelled to defend CRT because conservatives attack it, and by claiming that it has nothing to do with any of the bad things that conservatives say. But words have meaning. Parents and policymakers should understand CRT not as conservatives or liberals define it, but as it defines itself. Here's a definition from a 2001 book, Critical Race Theory, an introduction by Richard Delgado and Jean Stefanik, widely credited as the key architects of CRT. It's a long, boring definition. The critical race theory, CRT movement, is a collection of activists and scholars interested in studying and transforming the relationship among race, racism, and power. The movement considers many of the same issues that conventional civil rights and ethnic studies discourses take up, but places them in a broader perspective that includes economics, history, context, group, and self-interest, and even feelings and the unconscious. Unlike traditional civil rights, which embraces incrementalism and step-by-step progress, critical race theory questions the very foundations of our liberal order. I'm falling asleep here with this. Okay. Including equality theory, legal reasoning, Enlightenment rationalism, and neutral principles of constitutional law. Although CRT began as a movement in the law, it has rapidly spread beyond that discipline. Today, many in the field of education consider themselves as critical race theorists who use CRT's ideas to understand issues of school discipline and hierarchy, tracking controversies over curriculum and history and IQ. And IQ, achievement testing, political scientists ponder voting strategies coined by critical race theorists. Ethnic studies courses often include a unit on critical race theory, and American studies departments teach material on critical white students developed by CRT writers. Unlike some academic disciplines, critical race theory contains an activist dimension. It not only tries to understand our social situation, but tries to change it. All right, and if you haven't fallen asleep yet, goodness, good for you. Those are probably the two most boring paragraphs I've ever read in my whole entire life. Several points here deserve restatement. CRT defines itself in opposition to traditional civil rights and even Enlightenment rationalism. It defines itself not simply as a theory, but also a movement of activists who seek to transform society. Anybody who tries to peddle the line that CRT is just talking about racism is either gaslighting or being gaslit themselves. And anyone that maintains that CRT is simply an academic theory discussed in law school, at best, is ignorant of what CRT really is. By contrast, parent intuitions about CRT are spot on, given that CRT informs so many aspects of education, policy, and pedagogy. The real crux of the issue for parents is, as Andrew Sullivan adroitly put it, not teaching about critical race theory. It is teaching in critical race theory. And that's the main thing that you have to be able to understand and hit them with. School boards that are implementing CRT-infused programming should not follow the media's lead and gaslight parents by claiming that they are not teaching CRT on the grounds that they are not assigning academic journal articles by self-avowed critical race theorists. Because the more the parents look into it, the more they may realize that although their schools might not assign a canonical CRT academic journal article, they are teaching in CRT. That will further heighten alienation and distrust between schools and families. Alienation and distrust that is avoidable. People, you got to go into your school boards and you got to fight things like this lady here.
My message to this district and the members of the Board of Ed: stop indoctrinating our children. Stop teaching our children to hate the police. Stop teaching our children that if they don't agree with the LGBT community, that they're homophobic. You have children like mine who is Muslim and I'm Christian, and everyone would think, they would never believe that of her, right? Because the way she looks, or according to Miss Cyrus, she's too pasty white.
Oh, ma'am, we're not allowed to use names. If you have something you'd like to discuss about a specific person, you can call the superintendent or leave your info for her to call you tomorrow.
I can't even believe this. She's saying that the teachers are calling her kid pasty white.
Why are we not allowed to discuss names? Why am I not allowed when they purposely themselves expose themselves on social media, talking about calling for the death of a former president, or saying that any child that doesn't believe in Black Lives Matter should be canceled out? Is this what my tax dollars is paying for? You're teaching my children and other children that if they believe in God Almighty, they're part of a cult.
It's amazing that these teachers are just out there on social media, putting their names out there, just saying just crazy, hateful things. And then these school board folks are trying to protect them, even though they've already put themselves out with their hateful rhetoric in front of the world. I love this mom. We need more moms like her.
Educators put their own names out there. We have Mr. Barry, who took it upon himself with Miss Cyrus to create a curriculum.
That should be it.
Do you want the proof? I have the proof. You created a curriculum of Black Panther indoctrination.
Ma'am,
You use taxpayers'
can I
dollars.
ask you one more time? I have no issue hearing what you have to say, but
Why can we not let the public speak? Why can't we let the public know that you're teaching our children to go out and murder our police officers?
That
Do
is
you
not-
want the proof? I have the proof. Is that what scares you? The proof that a parent actually standing up against all of you? Is that what scares you, to call out the names of these people? You work for me. I don't work for you.
That's
You
right.
have a duty. We are entrusting our children to you. We teach our children morals, values when they grow up to commit crimes and end up in prison and kill a police officer. It's our fault? No, it's your fault. You're emotionally abusing our children and mentally abusing them. You're demoralizing them by teaching them communist values. This is still America, ma'am. And as long as I'm standing here on this good ground earth of God, I will fight. And this is not the last of me you will see. Schools are trying to poison our children's minds, teaching them about things that they have no right to be taught in school. Do you know who makes up the majority of this district? Children from police officers' families. Blues, back the blue children. Do you know what these children feel like when they come home? Have you spoken to them? No, you're silencing them. This whole cancel culture, you're silencing the children. Where are their rights? They have no rights. Because if they don't believe in the indoctrination, the demonic, twisted, sneaky, vile acts and education, if you call it that you're teaching our children, they don't agree with that. They're either homophobic, they're part of a cult, they're racist. What's racist? Who defines racist? Why? Because do you know what race I am? Do you? You don't. You don't even have an idea. I could be Black. I could be white. I could be Asian. You don't know. Who are you to determine that? Who is anyone to determine that? You know what? Children in the school system, children like other children, they don't look at color. Black and white children, Hispanic children, you know why they get along? Because they don't look at each other's color. So you're the racist, not them.
And that is true. The kids really don't see color. I watch kids on the playground all the time. They are not concerned about that. And these people are trying to just interject racist garbage where it doesn't need to be.
Not us. You're judging and dividing. You're causing segregation. Everything that we fought for, everything that I fought for years. So you have the right to stand here and tell me I'm not allowed to mention a name? When the person, the Mr. Barry and Miss Cyrus themselves, you have ELA teachers giving out assignments on police murder. Police are bad. You want the proof? Okay, because we have.
I mean, just imagine that though. That most of these kids, their parents, or a big portion of these kids in this school, their parents are police officers. And teachers are there telling them that their parents are bad. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We need 20 of those ladies at every single school board meeting across this nation. And if you don't know any of those or ladies like that, or there's no husbands or fathers like that, then that needs to be you. You need to be that person. All right, folks. So keep hope alive, keep up the fight. Remember, you can't stop fighting, or this is what your children will be taught.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and please share it. You can help us continue to fight in the war against disinformation by donating at paypal.me/rightleftofcenter. I'm River Wright from Right Left of Center, and if you're watching, you're probably right too.